horizon pulls me closer, a whisper in the wind. The map is blank before me. Where do I begin? No fear of what's uncertain. The unknown feels like home. With every step I'm finding a place I've never known. Let's go where no one has ever been. A world unseen beneath our skin. Through endless skies, we'll break the chain. Uncharted lands will claim them all. Rise like tides and let it fall. Just endless sea. Come drift with me. Come drift with me.
Hello guys, Termex here and welcome back to another Borderlands 4 build video. Today we have One Punch Harlow. Yes, Harlow of all Vault Hunters. I made Melee build viable, and all thanks to that guy in the bottom left there, Make You Heal, one of my longtime homies. He showed me the ways of the guaranteed crit knife, and it kind of brought this whole build together. So, how are we getting so much bonus melee damage on Harlow? How are we one-tapping bosses on UVHM 5? And how are we doing decent mob clear, honestly? And there's a lot to go over. This is going to be a pretty complicated build, but it's something unique and new that I wanted to do because nobody else is doing it. Everyone else is kind of doing the same shit, and I want to do something fun. The first thing that I want to go over is specializations first, because these are going to be the bread and butter of the build. But it's also something you can get fairly early on. Now with this, if we go over into our bare arms, melee damage now benefits from increases to gun damage. This will be playing a vital role into our melee build because we will be stacking up gun damage and a little bit of gun damage on certain abilities based on what we're doing. The second most important one is Groundbreaker. Non-melee attack damage is stored for the next 5 seconds upon you dealing damage, and your next melee will deal 20% of that damage as stored damage. So we want to do as much damage in a 5-second window as possible so our next melee attack could hit like a truck. That's why you see on the boss kills we are using an underbarrel with a lot of damage, so we charge it up very quickly and then we punch them right in the face and they die. For mobbing, you're not using this as much. It does help, sure, but for mobbing scenarios, you're not really wanting to shoot every time before you melee. But if you're going against badass enemies, you might want to use this a little bit. Shoot them with a few shotgun shots with the Boomacorn, which is called the Rainbow Vomit in this game, which is also another important part of the build. Now, going to our actual inventory, I would recommend getting the Rainbow Vomit as soon as possible. This gun is so good for Harlow. I happen to get a melee blade on the bottom end of it, which does increase our melee damage, by the way. Melee blades give you that 50% just like always. I just wish it showed on the actual card. But this is great because we are proccing our status effects. We're shooting a target with a status effect, which will give our cooldown to our action skill a whole lot quicker based on what we spec'd into in our skill tree. But it's just a whole bunch of convenience there. But for the boss killing, you don't need, but in my humble opinion, beam tosser, beam splitter just doesn't fit well with this build with how quick everything has to operate. Alt fire, spread launcher. You may have seen spread launcher be very overpowered in a lot of builds. It's still pretty damn powerful for what it is. But as of right now, in my opinion, this is the single best way to charge that damage pre-boss. So when you are fighting with the bosses, you want to shoot this first, get that damage, and just melee immediately. As you see, it's just very quick. You don't need any other parts. It just has to be a spread launcher. It doesn't need to be a specific Jacobs. It just needs to be a Jacob shotgun with this, because to my knowledge, Jacob shotguns are the only one that rolls with that. To further increase that, we have amp on our rep kit. So our next shot deals 200% bonus damage, which will benefit that underbarrel launcher tremendously, which you can see why it does so much. But for normal mobbing scenarios, we are actually using the war paint because the war paint will give us movement speed. Why is this important? Movement speed in this build is going to help. Everything in this game pushes you away. Everything in this game wants you to get away from it. And with the movement speed, it's just going to be a whole lot easier to catch up to enemies when you're mobbing, a lot less annoying just running at them as they shoot you, because it is an inferior build to anything else Harlow has to do mobbing wise. Not saying it can't do it. It definitely can, and it's a whole lot of damn fun, but just get the war paint to make your life a little bit easier. And I got leech on it, which does help out a lot. And for the knife, you've probably seen it everywhere. Whenever you hit a target with this, they take 15% more damage. You get automatic critical hits for the next 5 seconds, and that is honestly the main bread and butter of this build. The build still operates great and will do good melee damage on bosses without it, but you are not getting that one punch potential. So I will say out of this whole build, the two needed things, in my humble opinion, are going to be the alt fire and a knife like this, which everyone's talking about. But the rep kit with amp also I would put in the category of being needed, so those 3 items are a necessity for this build. Going into our class mod, nothing special, nothing legendary, nothing I've seen that would help. I just have simple melee damage on it. I've tried other class mods and other kills to see what we can possibly get out of it, and honestly, I've seen nothing. Even with the Entangle, this one kind of works, Scientist, because it does have that shock chain, but we're 1 to 2 tapping most mobs anyway, so it's not really that noticeable. I just found any random class mod with melee damage works perfectly fine. For the shield, this is the heavyweight shield. This is a melee shield. On melee hit, consume any armor segment and grant 100% melee damage. If you don't have any armor segments, it's actually only 50%, but it still works. Now, the 2 rolls I got beneath, I think, are kind of contributing to the power of this build, because every time I melee, I'm triggering a Nova, and I'm also triggering a bunch of little missiles to further benefit my damage for my next melee because of that one specialization where non-melee damage is stored into the next melee hit. So every time I'm meleeing, that's going back into my damage because of the way the build operates. And then finally, for the enhancement, I've yet to find a melee enhancement, so all I did was get gun damage because it does technically give us more melee damage at half the rate, and shotgun splash damage, which will affect our underbarrel damage, then leading to more damage on our part. Some things to note, I put heating up for the gun reload speed because when I'm using the Rainbow Vomit while I'm shooting, I want to be able to reload as fast as possible, not get animation canceled. But I will say, if you want this build to be even better for mobbing specifically, is Real Big Fist. I didn't want to put another Real Big Fist, but it would be another 25% melee damage, making this build even better, by the way. But if you have 3 stacks of Real Big Fist, we get a 200% melee damage Nova when we get a melee kill, making the whole mobbing potential of this build so much better. So if you look at this build and you're like, this is kind of gimmicky and you want to do more mobbing, get 3 stacks of Real Big Fist on your firmware and the whole issues will go away. Trust me, I know for a fact the way this build performs with enemy density, it's already doing well without it. Once you do get the 3 stacks of Real Big Fist, it's just going to shred everything, and the melee damage and the big Novas, they're going to be absolutely great. Going to the skill tree, this is where things kind of get a little complicated, but try to stick with me. The first thing to get noted here is Nuclear Winter is one of the main things here, because when we're inside that Flux Generator, we do get bonus damage, which counts as action skill damage, so some things could proc here, but it's just going to further benefit our overall damage into our melee. So the first thing we're going to do is status effect Entangle, just to spread our Entangle to do more damage and help with our mobbing scenarios. Personal Observation will give us melee damage, but we also get a chance to entangle enemies with our melee, but we want the melee damage, obviously. We also got Cryo Efficiency to move further down into the tree, plus the freeze chance. If you want, you can put reload speed per entangled enemy if you find you're struggling in that department. Every time we shoot an entangled enemy, we get action skill cooldown reduction per shot. This is needed because I do not like waiting 40 seconds for Flux Generator to come back up. Shoot someone with your Rainbow Vomit, which is going to proc a bunch of status anyway. Get that action skill back quicker. Overshield and gun damage. This will give us a transfertive melee damage from our one specialization, so it says 36 here. But not only that, it's feeding damage into our boss killing potential because, like I said, the more gun damage we deal with that first shot, the more melee damage we will do. Blue Shift, another melee skill for Harlow, where when our action skill is active, we will deal bonus melee radiation damage, and when it's cooling down, we will deal bonus cryo damage. And why this is so good is because it scales off of melee damage, but it also scales off of elemental damage. So anything that boosts our elemental damage will increase our melee damage, which is really damn nice. We also have Latent Charge. This is another overshield ability where when we have enough overshield, we do more melee damage, more gun damage, and more action skill damage. So this is just feeding into everything in the build that really matters overall. But how are we keeping up this overshield? I know everyone's going to ask. Well, it is going to be potential transference. This right here is the single #1 thing in this build that people are sleeping on. This makes your flux area heal you, and this also gives you overshield. Why does it give you overshield? I don't know. I'm taking it. I think it's awesome, and it allows armor segments to be regenerated when I'm inside of it. Every time I pop this and I start meleeing, my armor segments just come back over and over and over and over again. Plus, you could res your teammates. You may have seen some of the footage when my homie's down. You click F or whatever button you're on console, and you could insta-res anyone this goes onto. Not only that, this is the only augment that allows you to place it wherever you want. It will teleport to the location of your cursor, and there's no range issues. So when you're in a mobbing scenario or the boss moves, your Flux Generator isn't rendered useless because you have 3 extra charges to say, hey, I want to move it over here. Hey, I want to move it over there. And it just makes it a whole lot more convenient. Another point here is just increased status effect chance, but whenever we apply a status effect to an enemy, it also becomes entangled. And that is what's really important here, spreading that tangle, especially in mobbing scenarios. And for our final 11 points, these ones could be be kind of subjective based on what I said earlier. If you want, you could boost the elemental damage down here after you get some status effect chance, but we really don't need the status effect chance. But I like to go in the blue tree for 2 reasons. One, I like the gun damage on triggering action skill, plus my class mod boosts it a little bit, so we get more gun damage when we're doing the boss kills, because like I said before, gun damage translates into melee in more ways than one. It's double dipping. It's dipping once into the specialization, and it's dipping a second time into the other specialization that takes half of your gun damage boost into melee damage, so it's a no-brainer to spec that. The other one is going to be just raw elemental damage, which once again boost our melee damage, and then finally ripple effect just to spread entanglement a whole lot easier. But that is the whole build. That is the whole build I recommend that you guys use. It's absolutely amazing. It's a whole bunch of fun. Only thing that is hard is there's a lot of specifics to it, but then again, Harlow's not a melee character, and I made her a melee character because I saw some melee abilities on her, and I'm like, why does she have melee benefits on Harlow? But yeah, that's how it works. If you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like on it, as it does spread out my content to more people in the Borderlands 4 community. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more amazing Harlow content from me. You guys stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all later.